The child was born who couldn't sit still. 86 years later with no regret. You know that man can't sit still yet. The Great Depression couldn't get him down. He worked for his dad's store in town, collecting money in small amounts for poor whites and blacks in their furniture accounts. Stetson Kennedy wants us all to be free. Stetson Kennedy wants us all to be free. As he'd collect, he'd talk to folks. You hear legends, tales, songs, and jokes. Now this fine treasure he'd record and write. He was colorblind, didn't see black and white. Writer's project for the WPA. With Zora Neale Hurston, he earned his pay. Crackers and blacks, they talk for hours. It was a barefoot history in this land of flowers.
The weekend was on the 16th of December 2017 as we move along. Number of developments in the past week, of course. Judge Moore was defeated in Alabama. He rode off into the sunset on his horse. Some suggest, a lady out of Oakland, that the horse rode Judge Moore. Well, we won't go there, as they say, but nonetheless, Judge Moore is gone. I noticed, this is in Alabama.com, Mo Brooks, if you remember him, he was the representative that ran in the primary, and I believe he came in third against Judge Moore was in the primary, Luther Strangelove, and Mo Brooks. Mo Brooks later endorsed Judge Moore. But nonetheless, he announced that he had prostate cancer. He's 63. His grandfather and father had it. And he had a surgery, and the surgery was successful. It's called it high risk because of his PSA. We have, of course, personal experience there with high risk prostate cancer, a high PSA. Our Gleason score was okay. But once you have high risk, you have a situation of the prostate cancer reoccurring, and it can go to the bones and other places. And then there's the author of the Nero Wolfe series, Mr. Stout, would say, you're in a pickle. You're in more than a pickle. But anyway, there are stratagems out there to prolong life, and basically with cancers, breast, prostate, etc., you will tend to benefit the longer you live because the treatments change. Brooks had his at the Birmingham, Urology Center, and they performed a radical prostomy, and then they'll do further tests. Normally, this type of situation, you would end up not only having the operation, but having radiation on the side, or getting hormone treatment. I had hormone treatment, Lupion treatment, and that is one of the things. And we also had radiation. We did not have the surgery, which may or may not have been a mistake. Sometimes you do make mistakes with it, but we are moving along. Today I had a bone scan, and we also had a let's see, what is it called? A photo, a C-scan, basically, of the area using the type of technology. It's very good technology. I said C-scan, CAT scan, I'm sorry. Anyway, those are the things that they use to see if there has been any movement in to the bones or other area around the pelvis, which they were looking at. And we'll stay tuned for that. But nonetheless, Mr. Brooks is off and running. Also during the week, net neutrality was abolished by the appointee from the Trump administration, and we'll just play this. Actually, he had the audacity to go and do a YouTube video of it, and let's see if we can get it up here.
Hi, I'm Ajit Pai. I'm the chairman of the FCC. Recently, there's been quite a bit of conversation about my plan to restore internet freedom. Here are just a few of the things you'll still be able to do on the internet after these Obama-era regulations are repealed. You can still gram your food. Quality. Are you selfieing or just... You can still post photos of cute animals, like puppies. You can still shop for all your Christmas presents online. Yes, got that bulk deal on fidget spinners. Yes, those Eclipse glasses are so cheap. You can still binge watch your favorite shows. You can still stay part of your favorite fan community. You can still drive memes right into the ground.
And everything else you ever did on the internet. Like everything. All of it. All of it.
A clown is born, no doubt about that. By the chair of the FCC, the vote was 3-2. The three Republicans, of course, voting in favor of abolishing net neutrality. The rule repeals internet providers no longer will have to treat all content equally, and meaning they could slow or block some sites or create fast-paying lanes. No doubt this is not, as they say, good for the consumer. Let's move on here. We have also Karl Rove in the waiting here. Let me just adjust something here. We'll get Karl Rove. He's basically talking about Roy Moore and how he ended up in some of the Roy Moore ads along with Hillary the Monster Clinton as one of the elites. But that does happen sometime. Let's get the scores in here. The Heat tonight were at the Hornets. Heat 104-98. The Pistons were at the Pacers in Indiana. The Pacific in Indianapolis 104-98. The Trailblazers and Magic. Trailblazers 95-88. And in a third overtime, the Thunder came out on top in Philadelphia 119-117. The Clippers and Wizards 100. The Wizards in D.C. 191 over the L.A. Clippers. The Jazz and Celtics in Boston 107 for the Jazz, 95 for the Celtics. The Nets in Toronto, Raptors 120-87. The Hawks and Grizzlies, close game there, 96-94. the Bulls and Bucks in Milwaukee. Bulls 115 to 109. The Bulls have been winning some games lately. And in another overtime, the Pelicans were in Denver. Nuggets 117 to 111 for the Pelicans. The Spurs and Rockets in Houston. Across Texas rivalry, I guess you could say. The Rockets 124 to the Spurs 109. And hopefully we'll get this clip in by the district attorney out in the Midwest city of Minneapolis, where he is working there. Just a few little things here that we're adjusting. Some of the news, the tax bill, incidentally, the Republicans that Marco Vegas Rubio and let's see who else. Primarily Marco Vegas Rubio as one that had withdrawn his objection to the bill. We can find it here. And wait a second here. No, we still have last night up here. Anyway, as soon as we grab this, it just took me just a second here. Flying through here. Susan Collin. Well, Susan Collin and Lisa Murkowski were two of the votes, and of course with John McCain. John McCain's in Walter Reed Hospital, so he will not be there. And we were talking about the bill is a complete, and of course it finalized their plans. And Bob Coker, I forgot about him. He's from Tennessee. They pledged to support the bill. That's not unusual. There's been a lot of commentary here about this particular bill. It's called the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. Represents a one-time reduction in the corporate rate. Now it's at 21%. Is in this bill. It's 35% now. Also lowers taxes for a majority of American small business owners, and at least until the cuts expire in 8 years. It's a 10-year plan, incidentally. Last-minute changes include the student loan deduction, the deduction for excess medical expenses, and tax breaks for graduate students. A change made Friday morning to win over Marco Vegas Rubio would expand the benefits of child credit to more money for working families. And here's a rundown of the full bill. You can read all 505 pages. The plan lowers the top earners rate for the rich. On the current law, it's at 39.6% for married couples over $470,000. The GOP bill would drop that to 37%, raising the threshold, which at the top bracket kicks in to $500,000, $500,000 for individuals and $600,000 for married couples. This amounts to a significant break for the very wealthy, departure from the repeated claim of DJ Trump that the bill would not cut taxes on the rich. The new tax breaks for millionaires go far beyond was the original House and Senate bill, with Republicans seeking to ensure wealthy earners such as in New York, Connecticut, and California don't end up paying substantially higher tax bills. As a result, massive tax cut for corporations starting on the 1st of 2008, January 1st. Big business tax rates would fall from, as we said earlier, 35% to 21%. So it amounts to roughly a $1 trillion tax cut for business over 10 years. You can deduct $10,000 in state and local property taxes, one of the most controversial parts of the plan on the current law. The state and local deduction, SALT, is unlimited. So in other words, you'll go from an unlimited deduction to a $10,000 deduction. Can deduct up to $10,000. That's for married couples, are limited to just $10,000. The House initially restricted the $10,000 deduction to just property tax, but the final bill, any state and local tax to be deducted whether property income or sales tax, and you can deduct your sales tax. Most people don't know that. Most Americans will pay less in tax until 2026. The Trump administration claims 2,000. That's a dubious claim. The bill would increase the number of Americans who owe nothing in taxes from the currently 44% to 47.5%. Not a significant situation there. And after the tax plan, it becomes in effect on January the 1st. But all individual tax cuts are scheduled to go away in 2025. Working class families get a bigger child credit. The current credit is $1,000 per child. The Senate will expand the tax credit, with the Senate going up to a maximum of $2,000 per child. The final bill keeps the $2,000 per child credit, making up about families making up $400,000 to that to take the credit. Now, benefits for families who initially were limited to about $1,100 through changes in leave now get $1,400 per child. So I guess if you're one of these children and have 6 families. The individual insurance mandate goes away in 2019 and will no longer be required by law to buy health insurance. That is something the Republicans tried to get through the so-called skinny bill. The bill does not start to repeal until 2019. The Congressional Budget Office has projected insurance premiums and increase in them and lead to 13 million Americans without insurance. And also, that's in a decade, cutting spending by $300 billion. That's the whole idea behind this. You can pass on to your heirs up to $22 million now, tax-free if you have $22 million. In the end, the estate tax, often called a death tax by opponents, will remain part of the code, but fewer families will pay. On the current law, Americans pass on up to $5.5 million tax-free. That threshold is now $11 million for married couples. The House wanted to do away with the estate tax entirely, but the Senate was too much to give away to the mega rich. The final compromise was to double the threshold. So now the $11 million that people pass on stocks, bonds, assets won't be taxed. That means $22 million for couples. A pass-through, companies get a 20% reduction. Most American businesses are organized as pass-throughs. Companies in which income from the business is passed through to the business owner's individual tax return. That's called S-Corp. LLC, partnerships, sole proprietorships are all examples of pass-throughs. In the final bill, a majority of companies get up to 20% of their income tax-free. All larger reductions that mirror what the Senate bill. The changes will expire in 2025. The National Federation of Business initially opposed the House version, arguing that it would didn't do enough for small business. They later endorsed the House and Senate plan. That means doctors, law firms, Indian chiefs, investment offices can only take if they take the 20% deduction if they make up to $315,000 for married couples. No corporate AMT, the final version's rich corporations, the alternative minimum, a big relief to the business community. The corporate alternative minimum makes it difficult for businesses to reduce their tax bills much lower than 21%. CEOs complain that it was a backdoor tax. Fewer families will have to pay. The individual ATM alternative for individuals started in 1969. The alternative minimum tax kicks in now for individuals earning over $120,000, married couples $160,000. Under the final bill, that's lifted now to $500,000 for individuals and $1 million for couples. The mortgage deduction gets smaller. Under current law, taxpayers can deduct interest payments paid on $1 million of mortgage, and in some areas that is not out there, like Seattle, the West Coast. Average house is running 1.1 million. Republicans tried to cap that at $500,000 for new loans. Existing mortgages are unaffected in the plan, but the final version settled on a cap of $750,000. The final bill will cost $1.46 trillion. It's been talking about 1.4. What's not changing? Keep in place student loan deduction, medical expense deduction, and the graduate student tuition waiver. The House got rid of these popular deductions. The threshold to deduct from expenses over 10% of income to 7.5 in 17-18 so far. 401ks plans stay the same. No changes to the Roth IRAs, etc. Mosques, synagogues, and whatever else. The Johnson Amendment stay in place. You can't get a political or endorsed candidates in election. DJ Trump and his right-wing buddies want to destroy this. The Johnson Amendment, which has been in place from LBJ since 1954. And it was passed by LBJ when he was in the Congress, prevents religious institutions and nonprofits from getting involved in elections. The House included a repeal of the Johnson, but the Democrats were able, and this is a major victory here. There's a correction here. The Post misstated, the COB's estimate the number of uninsured Americans in 10 years. It predicted 13 million or fewer will have insurance if the mandate's not fulfilled. So that we have. Let's go to the dirty words here, so to speak. Now, this is words forbidden, literally, at the Center for Disease Control. That's in Atlanta, Georgia. We're told a list of forbidden words in a meeting with senior officials who oversee the budget, according to an analyst who took the 90-minute briefing. The forbidden words are entitlement, diversity, transgender, fetus, evidence-based and science-based, and vulnerable. For instance, an analyst were given alternative phrases instead of science-based or evidence-based. They suggest the phrase is CDC-based. Its recommendations on science and consideration. The question of how to address such issues as sexual orientation, gender identity, abortion rights, all these received significant visibility under the Obama administration. But now under the new scheme here, 7 key departments, health, education, and human services, which oversees them, the education, housing, urban development, Justice Department, all of these characters, has removed information about LGBT Americans from its website. Department administers Children and Families example, an archive page that outlines the federal services available to LGBT people. They've disappeared. Several of their work, the National Centers for HIV/AIDS, viral hepatitis, and so forth and so on. Birth defects are caused by the Zika virus. I guess they've all disappeared too. The ban is related to the budget and supporting materials that are given to CDC partners and to Congress. The budget blueprint is generally shaped to reflect the administration's priorities are not priorities. The CDC's budget of about $7 billion and more than 12,000 workers across the nation. They deal with a lot of different things, infectious. They have a budget of that. The Trump administration has cut that budget. We don't have it here. On to Uncle Karl Rove. Moore's law, a kooky candidate loses, is what he's writing in the Wall Street Journal on the 14th of December. In the interest of full disclosure, since November 30th, my face has appeared in nearly a score of email fundraisers for Roy Moore. And not as you might guess, in a positive light, my mug was sandwiched between Hiroshimaana Clinton and Gloria Allred. Under the title, Defeat the Elites, I'm clearly no favorite of Mr. Moore. Moore's most recent in too long a line of cracks and nuts who threw away almost certain Republican victories in the Senate. He names here Sharon Wrongangle in Nevada. Harry Reid kicked her in the ass. And cuckoo Christine O'Donnell, she was kind of a favorite out because she was nutty. Todd Aiken down in Missouri, and Indiana's Richard Murdoch, I suppose I was, reached its low point with the judge from Gladden, Alabama. Weirdly, Moore's defeat was the most impressive given Alabama's affinity for the GOP since 2002. Republicans have won 42 out of 50 contests nationwide by an average of 16 points, and the contest since 2010 by 20 points. This does not include 14 races in which Democrats didn't face the field. It takes a very special Republican to lose in Alabama. Not surprising. Judge Moore doesn't hold himself responsible for the defeat. He told supporters Tuesday that part of the problem with his campaign is we've been painted in unfavorable and unfaithful light. We have been put in a hole. Actually, it's Moore who for decades painted himself with these unflattering colors. Moore's campaign was brought down in part by credible allegations that while in his 30s he molested a 14-year-old and dated other teenagers. He admitted to dating teenagers but not molesting anyone. These assorted revelations were only the latest controversy of 25-year career jammed with sensational incidents. Moore was twice rejected from his position as the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. The first time was for defying a federal court order. The second time was for ordering a probate judge, to ignore the Supreme Court's gay marriage ruling, which, with all candor here, the Republican Party did, and they campaigned on it. The Moore has a pension for outrageous statements. In September, he said America was great in the years before the Civil War because it was a time when families were united. Even though we had slavery, he suggested in February that the 9/11 attacks occurred because we distanced ourselves from God. And he asked in August about Ronald Reagan's description of the Soviet Union as a focus of evil in the modern world. He replied, "You could say that very well about America today." He's right about that one. Then there was Moore's Foundation for Moral Law, a classic money grab cloaked in the evangelical garb. Most of the money it raised through telemarketing appeals for support of traditional values was spent on fundraising costs. Well, that's not unusual. That happens all the time. What remains largely went to salaries for the principals. Moore and his wife and his advisors. Then, surprised, it turned out that he grossly misled the public about his compensation from the enterprise. Even Moore's appearance was problematic. Maybe he thought wearing cowboy boots and a hat with a leather vest and riding a pony to vote would make him look like John Wayne, but Saturday Night Live was right. He looked more like Woody from the toy store. Well, Karl Rove gets in his final licks, I guess you would say. We also covered the DA out in Minneapolis on the Christine Denard story. That he has not decided to convict anyone to date, and he is still, as they say, looking. So very difficult to say where he is or where he is not. The guy's name, Freeman out there, and I don't know. Let me see just a second here. No, this is not what we were trying to find. We may not find it. We were trying to get a clip here when a statement made by him, and we're not getting it at all up here. Let me see. Maybe. This is a party for union workers in Minnesota, and the DA there is Mike Freeman. Just listen to him.
But if you look at this, I can't talk to them, right? I respect that. So I can't talk to her because she's gone. And the other cop just gave us shit. Okay? So guess what? I got to figure out angles of the shot, gun residues, reckless use of force experts. I mean, everybody, I agree with you. Look at this. But if you look at this, here's a nice lady who hears something bad outside. She calls the cops, they don't come, she calls again. They drive by in her alley, they don't stop to talk with her, and she comes out in her jammies, and she's still back out. Yeah. Sounds easy, doesn't it? But is that just, can I prove that the cop shot her? I could have done that.
But the thing is, that's what a trial's for. So why don't you just bring him to trial? You have him in front of a judge. He has to ask the questions. Is that not how the court system works?
Before I charge someone, I have to have sufficient admissible evidence to be able to prove beyond reasonable doubt. You can shake your head, sir, but would you like me to charge your friend just because I think maybe he did it and let a jury?
But the fact is that that's how the justice system that works all the time. You do it to innocent poor people all the time, Mike, and it happens every day. So why is it so difficult when it's a police officer, Mike?
Well, because I have to follow the law. Okay?
It's not to follow the law. We just want to
We just want everybody.
Yeah, and listen.
Good. Is that you they were quoting in the Sunday paper about you're going to be protesting?
My daddy taught me one time, you don't mess with cops and you don't touch their gun. And they did, I could prove that in the other which is why I couldn't charge them.
What I'll be doing is I'll be at the AOPL.
5 months after.
You guys do something, and I have to get research. Move y'all out.
So I couldn't charge them.
I'm feeling real sick. I'm be gone for the next hour.
Very good. Lighter who kicked this guy in the face.
I'll be back. I'm on my hour mandatory break.
I'm on the emergency.
Did you see my quote? I said the sentence wasn't enough either. It wasn't what we asked for. I prosecute. I don't send. We ask for more. Because the best thing about that, he's got a felony. Never going to happen again. Get him the hell out of here. So, when I get it done, I promise you, it will be thorough. That's the best I can do. Okay?
Did you get a kiss from somebody?
Nobody can.
I was like, you got lipstick. Someone got prosecuted tonight.
A lot of people aren't as respectful as you are when you ask the question, and I appreciate it. And you're entitled to ask it. Yeah. And you'll get it done. Okay?
Why did you talk to the people around us? My daughter has to go to court for somebody touched black.
That was the district attorney involved in the Justine Denard case. And the crowd there was a holiday party for government workers, and he happened to appear there because he's up for re-election. And basically what he said was the investigation is incomplete from the State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, they call it, and evidently this bureau has a history of investigating from the murderers or the cops' point of view. And this is what happened in this particular case. So now his investigators, as with most district attorneys' office, I know in the OJ case, they have a large contingent of investigators, and they also there. So they're investigating, and will continue. Supposedly he will make a decision in roughly 2.5 weeks. Today is the 16th. By the end of the year. We don't know if that'll happen or not. But in previous cases, like Jamar Clark, he made a decision not to prosecute. Whereas in the other county that's adjacent to them, the district attorney there did prosecute the person that murdered the individual over there. So a little different kind of situation in different counties. Clark, nothing happened there, and there's a long series in the counties that Freeman has that they did not. Mr. What was his first name? Cassell was the last name there. Anyway, nonetheless, the jury found that person not guilty, but the civil suit, and he was fired. So that's basically the end of that story. We'll see you on the Monday morning quarterback. We did get these two things in that we actually wanted to get in. On Monday morning, we'll be looking at the talk shows, and we'll see where they are, and we'll also look at some polling as we run out of time here. And we'll get those. Numbers Man, we did one on Dr. Janet Yellen and her final news conference. We'll have another Numbers Man report this week in economics. We'll talk about the current economic situation. We decided to split those up. I'm running a little bit out of voice here, but and we'll also have an open source report. That is our technical report as things kind of settle down here, hopefully. Have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you on Sunday night, Monday morning.